Henry Durand, local democracy reporter at the Eastern Daily Press, joins me now. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Very well. Can you just explain, there's a lot to get into here. Just tell us, first of all, what happened last night.
Yeah, so last night was obviously the third night of sort of proceedings, someone called proceedings. So third night, I would say, was a more toned down affair, considering what we've seen in the previous two nights where houses have been smashed up. The most sort of dramatic events were there were two arrests made. One was for drunk and disorderly, and another one was for events on the Wednesday night when multiple people invaded a home and something. But ultimately, the top line and the upshot of it is more asylum seekers that the police have confirmed were forced to evacuate last night in the Abbey estate in Thetford. So this means, again, more people have been moved out of homes, which, continues to sort of be unprecedented in Norfolk and sort of across the rest of the country in terms of sort of protest outcomes.
Is it social housing or private housing? Do you know?
No, I'm not sure. As in, they're understood to sort of be home office properties that are sort of run by Serco, the government contractor, which sort of carries out these goods. But what I found as a reporter and what locals are also frustrated at is the lack of transparency regarding how these homes are run, when they're moved in, what the sort of agreement is between them. And that's sort of adding to the tensions, because a lot of people are telling me they're just frustrated at the lack of transparency and sort of openness regarding how these sort of dispersal placements are being carried out.
I see. And are these families or individuals?
I believe they're, again, it's speculative if I confirm it.
Yeah.
The men that were brought out of the house on Tuesday night, which was the initial incident, were believed to be all men.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think on Wednesday night, the men that are also reported to have since left the home, although they weren't evacuated on Wednesday night, the second night of the protest, were also believed to be just men. But, it's believed that the people last night who were targeted may have been a family. But, as I said, I'm unable to confirm these details as the Home Office sort of refused to talk to us.
Right. Well, that is interesting. And it got pretty bad last night. A police officer was bitten, is that right?
So that was actually on the second night of proceedings. So, it's been 3 nights of protest sort of tends to blend all these things into one. I would argue that Tuesday night marked the height in terms of violence. So we saw two officers sent to hospital. One was bitten and one was rocks were thrown at. Another one was spat at. I myself was actually punched by a protester, and she's been arrested this morning.
Oh, gosh.
And during these evenings, men stormed into the home. Windows smashed, eggs were thrown at windows, and there was obviously a dramatic clash with the police after I'd been forced to leave. So Tuesday night marked the height of Wednesday night, marked the height. But yeah, it's dramatic and unprecedented in terms of violence in Norfolk, certainly.
I mean, I don't want to go too much into the detail. You say someone's been arrested, but why were you punched? I don't understand.
Yeah, so obviously Wednesday night was before the national media had picked up proceedings, and I'd done an article on Tuesday night, the first night when the men had moved out, and that'd gone up about 2 hours before I went and then joined the second night of protests, and I was engaging in healthy debate with a lot of them about my description of them as a mob, which a lot of them didn't like, and I was happy to engage in debate. But as the night wore on and sort of tensions rose, one of them sort of blindsided me with a punch. I was then sort of threatened, and I was forced to leave, which was really frustrating because it meant I wasn't able to report on the violence that unfolded between the public and police later in the night. But as I said, I was on my own. There was no other journalists there or anyone else. It was me and about 100 protesters, so probably could have got out of there.
And the protesters, are they local or are they coming from outside?
I think this is a really important thing to talk about because, as we've seen across other protests around the country, a lot of these protests can sort of become a melting pot of people who are frustrated at sort of current events or issues. But what I would say is most of these people, if not all of them, are locals. I recognise some of them from my previous reporting. This is certainly a local issue. It's not sort of dragging people in from across Norfolk and the rest of the country. A lot of these people appear to be locals, and they're concerned. They're concerned, really.
What started all of this? I know you said that there's been some frustration locally that the Home Office are not answering questions about who's in the houses for how long, etc., what kind of housing this is. But was there a particular thing that started all of this or not?
Yeah, and it's a great question and an important thing to point out. In fact, you look at other protests such as Southport and other recent ones, and they've all been started by a sort of event, whereas these haven't. There was no particular thing that sparked these protests. They're very ad hoc and organic and sort of off-the-cuff protests. The thing that is fueling all this, and it's been fueling tensions in the town for the past month or so, is the plan to house more than 1,000 migrants at RAF Barnham, which sits on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
This has obviously started tensions which have, in previous weeks, have seen MPs chased around after town council meetings, but they've really sort of boiled over this week.
Yeah, Nigel Farage has said that the proposed use of this particular base would leave locals living near the site very worried and very scared. And as you say, it's about a mile from Thetford. From what you've seen and witnessed, do you think this is going to continue or fizzle out?
That's the question on everyone's lips, as it was last night. Obviously, we saw the 2 nights of sort of unprecedented violence. Last night, there was no sort of damage to properties, even though the people were evacuated. But I need to stress, these protesters, there's not a sort of coherent movement. It's genuinely a local sort of gathering, and it's not discussed online. There's no media. It's all sort of word of mouth, underground sort of thing. So no one, the truth is, even me on the ground here, no one knows what's going to happen tonight. People could sort of, violence can, just Friday night, sunny weather, these things sort of tend to sort of spark, more heightened protests, but it could be quiet again. What I will say is, last night, the police have sort of managed to get on top of this a little bit more now. Wednesday night, it was perhaps they're sort of underprepared. However, last night they issued 2 sections, one to stop face coverings, and another that gave them the ability to issue sort of town orders, ordering people to leave the town. And this definitely gave them a better hold of the night. Around 10 dispersal orders were given out, and the lack of balaclavas, I definitely think, deterred people from committing sort of questionable acts. So I think police are starting to get a grip, but tensions continue to be high, and no one knows what's going to happen this evening.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. That's incredibly comprehensive, Henry. It's the power of local reporting, of course. That's Henry Durand, local democracy reporter at the Eastern Daily Press. And I think it was in the news, we heard a clip of an MP saying that, that if this kind of thing gets results, so to speak, in that, these people have been taken out of the homes, that in the MP's point of view, words, is the wrong message to be giving, only because we don't want to see towns across England, across the United Kingdom involved in this kind of violence. But, it's a problem that is going to continue, I would expect, for some time. It's just a question of how it is dealt with. I'd like to hear from you about this as well, if you think there's any way around this, any better way of dealing with this problem, because there are some local people who don't want to have certain individuals housed at an army base 1 mile from their town.